You know, what we've started here, and this is why we finish with the promised land, because this is why we keep fighting, right? People say, how do you get up out of bed and take the hits that you take? I mean, I've been accused, literally, I woke up one morning and I was accused of a mosque shooting in New Zealand. Did you guys follow that? I mean, it was the most ridiculous. I'm like, I speak about Black America. I speak about minority America, refusing the lies of the left. I get up on stage and I basically say the same thing every time. I say, Black America, I believe in you. I believe in us. Hey, Hispanic America, minority America, Asian America, I believe in you. I believe in us. That's it. That message is considered dangerous. So dangerous that they are willing to put out a media hit against me. Anybody that can take Candace Owens down, there will be a prize. The headlines I have read about myself, they call me a black white supremacist. And anybody see white supremacy here tonight? I mean, the stupidity that it takes to come up with something like black white supremacy. Oh yes, please. I would like to help create a society that I can't live in. That would be the logic. I get up on every stage and I say, please, please, please oppress me. That would be the logic. And yet we have pockets of people that fall for it. We have pockets of people that are still believing the media lies. We have pockets of people that don't realize that the media, do you want to know what they're after? A civil war. When I turn on CNN and MSNBC and I watch what they are saying and the lies that they are spinning, they are after a civil war. What do you think they want when they say things like Candace Owens is a Nazi sympathizer, like Candace Owens hates Black America, that Candace Owens is inspiring mass shootings? What are they doing? They are giving permission for people to come attack me. That is what they are doing. They are saying to Antifa, you can show up where she is and you can do what you do and you can threaten her. We are giving you the permission and our hands are going to be clean. That is what they are doing. It is a sin and it is wrong, and they have gotten away for it for too long. People ask me all the time, what is Blexit? What is Blexit, Candace? What is it, right? It's blacks, it's Latinos, it's Asians, it's also white people. White people too, waking up. We are all waking up to the left. We are waking up to what they've done. And it's not just a wake up, guys. It's an education. It's a re-education. Look at our schools. In Baltimore, not being able to find a single child that could pass a literacy exam across 5 schools. Why are they doing that? Because they know the truth. An educated mind can't be enslaved, so they have to make sure that we remain uneducated. They like their minorities emotional and reactive and not logical and rational. And so the challenge that I ask all of you minorities here today is when you see a story on any headline and it makes you feel something, stop right there and think first. Think first. In 2016, I had to do that because I was hurt. Just like you heard Brennan talk, I was hurt when I watched every person in this room felt something when we watched people bleeding out in cars because of a police officer. We all felt something because we're human beings and we have a heart. And the color of the person never mattered that was in the car. It never mattered. But then I stopped and I said, why? Why just before an election cycle are all of these liberal networks only showing this? Why are they showing black versus white? Why are they showing police brutality? What is this? And I looked at the statistics and I said, my goodness, as a black person, I have a higher chance of being struck by lightning than being struck by a police officer unarmed. Why are they showing this? Because they want us angry, because they want us emotional, because they want us irrational. Because when you are emotional, you are able to be manipulated and you are able to be controlled. I have watched the media create an entirely different Candace Owens. It's amazing. It's amazing. I've Googled myself and I said, ooh, this girl sounds horrible. I'm gonna protest her. And I said to myself, it's incredible. They make me sound like I grew up like a privileged rich girl in Connecticut. No, I didn't. I didn't grow up as a privileged rich girl in Connecticut. I grew up living in an apartment with my two sisters sharing a room where we had to have an exterminator come every month for roaches. They say they know what people think when you hear Connecticut, right? That's what they do. Candace grew up in Connecticut where the median income is $100,000. They're not commenting on my family. They just want to make you think that I grew up and I've been out of touch with Black America. They don't want you to know what I lived through. They don't want you to know that I grew up with uncles in prison and I visited my uncle in prison when I was a small child. They don't want you to know that I made a conscious decision when I was a child to live a different life. I was the little girl, and this is what Blexit is for, the little girls that are wondering if there's something else, that are living in existence and saying, I don't want this for myself. I always tell the story to people of my first play date, and it's an important one, and I will never, ever forget this. And it's stunning how when something is so important in your life, your brain just locks it in there like it was yesterday. I was 5 years old when I had my first play date. I didn't go to preschool, so my whole existence was where we lived in this low-income housing structure in Stamford, Connecticut. I didn't know anything outside of it. Everything I saw every day was Black people and Hispanic people. And then I went to school, and my first friend, her name was Lindsay, and she invited me over for a play date, and I was so excited to go. And when we got to her house, I was shocked as we were driving that the houses just got bigger and bigger and bigger. I said, oh my goodness, do people live like this? I went into Lindsay's house, and she had this beautiful big white house in Stamford, Connecticut, and she had a nanny, and everything was perfect in her house. She had a play date, extra space in the basement that was converted into a playroom for her and her sisters. Everything in her room seemed to me like it was Victorian style. She had glass dolls, and I said, my goodness, I can't believe people live like this. I want that. In that moment, I decided that I wanted that. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't jealous. I wanted to know how I could become that, how I could live like that. And then you know what happened? They put me in the school system after kindergarten. You start learning. And the teachers, what are they teaching people actively? Well, the reason Lindsay lives like that and you live like this is because of the color of your skin, right? That's where they start the programming. This was liberal Candace. I was learning actively to think that white people had something against me. This is what the public school system, when you have to understand the uphill climb that we have, the public school system is teaching us that we are oppressed and that it's because of the color of our skin. They're not telling us that we are the authors of our own destiny, that we're in the driver's seat, that we have to make different decisions. They didn't want to say to me, hey, Candace, if you wanted to live a different life, your mother could have made some different decisions. My mother dropped out of high school. My mother grew up in and out of group homes coming out of her life. She was one of 9 children, right? Those are different decisions that could have been made. My mother had all of her children out of wedlock. These are different decisions. We don't learn about that in school. How do we start teaching people that they are the authors, that they are in the driver's seats of their own destiny? I was blessed, and I really do believe this. I was blessed in 2016, and I never tell people who they support as candidates, so please go out, do your own research. I'm just telling you my story. I was blessed in 2016, in 2015 actually, when Donald Trump came down the escalator. And I'll tell you why I was blessed. He came down that escalator, and I was a liberal. I didn't know much about politics, but I knew that I had to be a Democrat because of the color of my skin. I knew that, right? I knew I was on the left because of the color of my skin. And he came down the escalator, and my first thought was, ooh, no, not him. Ooh, is that the guy that says you fired? The President of the United States? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But then, more importantly than the things that I was thinking, were the things that I wasn't thinking. See, I was thinking, okay, he's a reality TV star. He shouldn't be president of the United States. He says you're fired. That's too gimmicky. That's making our country a joke. No way. But I wasn't thinking this man is a racist. But the media suddenly exploded and they said he's a racist. He's a sexist. He's a misogynist. At one point, if you guys remember this, they were saying that he was incestuous and he had feelings for his daughter Ivanka. You guys remember that? It was absolutely disgusting. Overnight. But you see, I grew up listening to hip-hop music, and until that man announced that he was running for president of the United States, everybody loved Trump, okay? Everybody loved Trump. And just like that, the media said, no. Forget everything we said. I know he was great. He had his own show. We loved him. Forget Beyonce and Jay-Z sipping poolside. They wanted to be at Mar-a-Lago. Remember in the songs? Everybody wanted to be at Mar-a-Lago. He was a symbol of wealth, of Americanism, that you had made it. Everybody loved Trump. And just like that, I was supposed to be convinced that he was a racist because he announced his bid for the White House. That was my aha moment. I still wasn't sure about him. But I said to myself, and I asked a very important question, and it's a question that I want you guys to ask yourselves. Is it possible that racism is now being used as a theme to turn black people into single-issue voters? The answer is yes. When people know what you are afraid of, they can control you, okay? When people know what you fear, they can control you. And the left has figured out that minorities fear racism. So they call everything racist. I mean, I actually saw an article, and I believe it was the Washington Post, and it said that air was racist. And I thought it was a joke. I was like, this has to be satire. And I clicked it. It wasn't. They said that we are breathing worse air than white people. It was amazing. I said, wow, we're here right now. Okay, air is racist. I didn't think, okay. And it is laughable, but there are people that are sharing those articles going, see, I told you. I had a feeling the air is racist. I've been completely killed by the press 1,000 times over for a lot of things. First and foremost, I am not a feminist, and I say that proudly, and I'll explain to you why. Please do not believe that people that are calling themselves feminists today, these modern feminists, these Lena Dunham types that are out there boycotting Brett Kavanaugh, are feminists. They are not. They are people, they are radicalized feminists, people that are operating under the guise of feminism to attack men, okay? A society cannot thrive without strong men, okay? They are trying to demote masculinity. You see this in our society. There's something wrong. If you have any type of a feeling that makes you feel like a man, there's something wrong with you. They're trying to pervert masculinity. They're trying to even pervert femininity. There's something wrong. If you're a woman and you want to raise your kids, oh my goodness, what is wrong with you? There is nothing wrong with raising your kids. In fact, I would argue that's the toughest job in the world, to raise good human beings. This is the left. You have a feeling like you want to get married? What's wrong with you? I mean, I had a feminist tweet at me and said, why don't you go make your husband a sandwich? Okay. Does he want one? I mean, why on earth would I have an issue with making my husband a sandwich? Modern feminism is just, it's so crazy wackadoodle, I can't even begin. But this is the stuff that is required learning in school now. When I was at university, I was required to take Feminism 101, okay, as a part of my prerequisites for a journalism major. Let me tell you, I'm going to show you guys all how my class went. You guys ready? You guys are now all in Feminism 101. We had a massive textbook. In this textbook was every single problem that has faced women since the beginning of dawn, since the time of dinosaurs. They created this textbook, okay? And our teacher would sit at the front and she'd pluck out one of these things that happened in the textbook. She'd say, pick a struggle. Women are tired, more tired than men. Why? And then she turned to the class, and all we had to do to get an A was say, because of men. That was it. I mean, it was really the easiest class you could possibly get an A in. And no other thinking. So she'd say, I lost my keys this morning. Why? A's. Everybody just, that was incredible. That was incredible how fast you guys learn. So I remember being in this class, and mind you, this is at a time when I was a liberal. I was on the left. I was fired up. Feminism sounds great. Feminism 101. Let's do it. But eventually I said, everything is just because of men. I feel like there's got to be a little bit more going on. And there's one particular class that I always tell people about, and I will never forget it because retrospectively it was a turning point for me. She plucked out one of her things from this textbook, this wonderful textbook, Every Problem Since the Beginning of Time, and it was a statistic, scary statistic. It said 89% of the people in this country that have an eating disorder are women. And she turned to the classroom and she said, why? Goodness, Einstein's in here. It's just incredible. And everyone in the class, because some of the people had picked the class and they're nodding, and she went on and she said, it's because men make us feel like we have to be skinny and they're controlling the advertising industry. And I put my hand up and I said, ooh, this one I'm just going to have to try to rebut a little bit. And she looked at me because we do this back and forth, and she was like, Candace. What? What could you possibly have wrong with what I just said? I said, Professor, I just feel like there might be something else going on. I don't think everything can be because of men. And she looked at me, and I'll never forget the words she uttered to me. She said, Candace, I just feel like you were sent to me from the men's department. I'll never forget what I said back to her. I said, Professor, I just feel like I was sent to you from the common sense department. There might be something else going on that requires a little more critical thinking than men. And we kept trading back and forth, and we kept going, and eventually I hit her with a bomb. I said, I actually have an eating disorder. Many of you that follow my story know, and a lot of this is in my book as well, that from the age of 18 to 22, I had anorexia. So here I was, sitting in her classroom, and rather than turning around and asking us, really, genuinely, ladies, why do you think we have this problem? She was telling me why I have this problem, and she was wrong. There was never an eating disorder because of men. There was something men never said to me. My eating disorder wasn't even about being skinny. It was a control mechanism. When I felt that things in my childhood were out of my control, I said, this is something I can control. I can control how much I eat. And I became obsessed with it because it gave me control and it gave me power. That was what it was about. It had nothing to do with men. The idea of men even calling other women fat is, that's exclusively a girl-on-girl crime. And here I am. I'm right. I'm right. Guys would be like, oh, she's thick. Girls would be like, she's fat. She's fat. In that moment, fellas were like, thank you. But, in that moment, and I look back, and that moment was so critical. It was so critical because what I was watching was liberalism versus conservatism. You see, liberals, when they have a problem, they look externally. They say, who can I blame? Who can I blame? If I'm poor, I can blame rich people. If I have an issue and I'm black, I can blame white people. If I'm skinny, I can blame fat people, right? This, what's it called? Body positivity movement, right? Right? Yeah, I'm blaming skinny people for the fact that I don't like my fat, right? This is what the left is all about. It's the opposite game. Give them enough time and it'll be the short versus the tall, right? But conservatism is something different, and it's something that I believe in. You see, when we have a problem, we look internally. We say, how can I fix it? How did I get here? What can I do to change my destiny? How can I correct this course? That is conservatism. I always say that moment and that challenge that was presented to me when Trump came down the escalator, which spiraled and led me here, was a God-given moment. And I will tell you what it is that he's taught me that I think has been the greatest blessing of my life. He taught me for the first time ever how to love the American flag, how to love this country, right? He taught me how to love the red, white, and blue, something that you don't learn in school. You learn in school how to hate America, that you should feel guilty about being American when everyone else is suffering. We should feel guilty about capitalism. We should give it all away. We're horrible people. Trump made me realize that there is so much beauty in patriotism because, do you know what? Patriotism does not know color. Patriotism does not care about your sex. Patriotism does not care about your gender. Patriotism cares about your ideas. America is united by a concept, about an idea. And that idea is that you can come from nothing. You can come from absolutely nothing in this country. But if you work hard and stay out of trouble, this country will reward you. That is the American dream. There is no person that has lived that dream greater or more to the truth than my idol, my everyday inspiration, my mentor, my best friend, my granddad. My grandfather is about 80 now, and he was born in the segregated South in Fayetteville, North Carolina, on a sharecropping farm. So his first job was laying out tobacco to dry. And he was 5 years old. 5 years old. That was his first job. He'd get up before the crack of dawn because otherwise it was too hot under the Carolina heat, and he'd have to pick cotton and lay out tobacco to dry. Never, ever, ever in my life did my grandfather ever tell me that I couldn't do something because of the color of my skin. I've never heard my grandfather make a negative comment, and I grew up in his house during my formative years about white people, ever. He just believed in hard work. He just believed in God. He just believed in family. He also believed in lectures. Every single morning we'd have to read the Bible around the table. And he'd ask us he'd read a scripture and we'd have to learn something from it. He'd make these big Southern breakfasts. He had weird rules too, like no elbows on the table. And if we broke the rules, he'd always incorporate us into a prayer, which was horrible because I was young and I thought he was telling God on me. So he'd say, "Dear God, please help Candace realize that she shouldn't be turning the heat on in the middle of the night." And then I'd start crying and I'd say, "Why are you telling God?" And then I'd run from the table and run upstairs. And I look back on that now. It was stuff that used to embarrass me when I was a kid. So, I was a part of the secular world. I went to school. It wasn't cool to talk about God. It wasn't cool to say, "Oh, this morning we read scriptures." I just wanted to fit in. I was so embarrassed of that upbringing when I was young. And I look back now and I genuinely thank God. I thank God for my grandparents. I thank God for those breakfasts. Because they've now provided a pillar in my life. And I will end this by telling you where Granddad is now. Granddad, after moving up north, marrying my grandmother when he was 17 years old, he stayed married to her until his dying day, 53 years later in 2013. And when he retired, he moved back to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and he purchased that sharecropping farm that he grew up in. That is the American dream that I am giving back to our community. I am giving back to our community that we can work hard and we deserve a piece of that dream after all of that time.